Hello, welcome to Fridays with D-Dubs. A bit of a new setup today, and I don't know. Hello. Okay. Okay, so second Friday with D-Dubs. Um, so I can't lie. One of the inspirations for like the Friday with D-Dubs thing is there's this guitarist that I really love. His name is, I want to make sure I don't say it wrong. Tom Bukovac. Tom Bukovac. Sorry, Tom, that I'm getting your last name wrong. I'm sure I am. So he's a session player in Nashville, and I know you guys don't follow me for the guitar stuff, but he's a really fantastic player that doesn't get a lot of credit because he's a session guy. He just goes into the studio and just kills it. He's been on a ton of albums, and he has a YouTube channel where he's literally just like talking into an iPhone and just giving some cool guitar advice, and it's awesome. It's really cool. So that's what we are. That's what I'm super. I don't know. It's really peaceful. It's really awesome. He seems like a really cool guy. You know, drinking some coffee and talking about guitar and kind of his experiences, and then gives you a few tips and tricks along the way as well when it comes to like guitar. So I figured, I don't know, maybe do that every Friday with comics and illustration. Not like I have much to say, but today we're talking about Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, the manga. So this is volume 1 of a 2 hardcover series. I'm not sure how it was serialized in Japan, but originally when it came out in the States, it came out in little floppies, like trade paperbacks. That were a little smaller than this, I believe. I have one or two. I bought them before this came out, and I was trying to hunt them down, but they're not rare, but just they didn't necessarily have them on Amazon, and a lot of comic book stores didn't have them either. So yeah, this is easily top 3 comic books for me of all time. It has made it. There's parts of it that will make me cry, and with no words. It's just pictures. It's been a absolutely essential part of who I am as a storyteller and artist and comic book creator is because of this book. I mean, I owe so much to this man. I don't know. There's really no words, but I thought maybe we could look at it a little bit, check it out, see why I like it so much. So let's do it. Let's go. Let's do it. So I have a screen cap here. If I can figure it out. Okay. So, here we've got Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. And I apologize for the low image quality. I just don't have time to like sit and scan my books. I'm just grabbing them from Google and throwing them onto a Photoshop document. So, again, apologies, but what can you do? And as far as I'm pretty sure Miyazaki would use pencil. I'm pretty sure he used mechanical pencil for this whole series. I could be wrong. I thought I read that somewhere. So again, it's a mystery. If anybody knows or has resources or maybe an interview which has been translated, please send it my way in the comments. I would really appreciate it. If he did just use mechanical pencil, that would be incredible. Just goes to show like any tool that you can find is great, as long as it works for you. The detail here is just tremendous. I mean, I don't really need to talk about this, but one thing I love about Miyazaki's work, I see this a lot in like a lot of Akira Kurosawa films as well, is the simple mixed with the intense. So you have this like wide open negative space with just a tiny bit of detail, pardon me, and then all of this noise. So simple mashed with noise, and you get it here, this very simple shape here, these simple panels leading into a crazy detailed scene. It's something that I totally use all the time in my comics, just because, this doesn't take a lot of time to draw. This does. But my point is, you don't have to go crazy on the whole panel to make a panel look good. It's all about contrast of detail and negative space. Here we've got another scene. Man, look at this. So you can see again, we kind of have relatively simple, not simple, but there's not a lot of background here. It's more about the story of this panel, which is Nausicaa dodging pieces of wood. And then we burst into noise, a lot of noise, where it actually takes us a second to figure out what's going on because it's so busy. But it's kind of mirroring the kind of overwhelmingness, pardon my bad English, of the scene. We've got Nausicaa, so you have this simple background, and then bam, immediately we're overcome by this huge, it's overwhelming. It's just the power. And notice that there's some cast shadow here, which gives this figure weight, and there's just noise. I have used this technique countless times in my own comics. And then we're back into the really intense dynamics where we're zooming way in, right down here. Oh my gosh, so cool. Just gets me excited to draw stuff when I look at these. So here again, this is just all busy, but it's so beautiful. A lot of it is a lot of Miyazaki's stuff is that clean line style, but he just introduces blacks so beautifully here. And, this obviously probably took a long time, I don't want to assume, but notice that not every panel is beautifully illustrated. I mean, every panel is beautifully illustrated, but not as much time went into this panel. This is just a storytelling panel. There's not a lot of dynamics. It's just Nausicaa doing her thing. The real intense shot was put into this panel to show where she is and to give you a sense of place and mood. The rest of these panels, they're not bad, but you can definitely tell that, he put most of his time into this one, and I think that's really cool. It's just an artist being smart with their time. I do it all the time. You'll notice a lot of times I'll have one panel that I've really spent a lot of time on, and the rest of the panels, I'm not not doing my best, but it's hey, here's where the important part of this page is. It's okay. Again, contrast. Man, the emotion here, just incredible. Really intense. Barely any words. Beautiful. Some fantastic, I believe this is watercolor. Let's just take a look at the whole composition. Man, I love this. There's not really much to say. Sorry. I'm trying to get you guys excited about this stuff too, so I love this panel. Again, not detailed, very simple storytelling device, but the emotion is there and present. It's clear, and the dynamics come later. And then here we zoom out. We have a kind of a power stance. Nice cast shadow there to give this weight. Just makes everything seem a little bit more hefty. Love it. And there was one okay, here we go. Here's a strategy that I use all the time. A lot of times when I'm drawing really epic things in comics, things can get a little overwhelming and it's hard to understand what's going on. So a lot of times I would see Miyazaki do this in Nausicaa, where he would, if there was a big battle going on, or if there was a big scene happening, some sort of chaos, every once in a while, at least once every 2 pages, he would just zoom out and do this kind of mini helicopter view, almost like a drone shot, and it just very clearly would lay out everything that's happening. This is kind of blurry, sorry, but as you can tell, these figures are barely illustrated. This is mostly noise. Most of the important stuff is happening right around here, right? This struggle. Here's where he's putting in the work. The rest of this is noise, but this panel alone is giving us a clear explanation of what's happening later on, right? So then he can get in with the really crazy detail, because you wouldn't know what is happening outside of the scene if he was just drawing this, or even if it was just this. If this extended all the way out here, with it being this zoomed in, you're not getting the scope of what's happening. So every once in a while, pulling out, and doesn't necessarily mean a ton of work, just a way to instill clarity, which is something he's really good at. So that's why I love it. I mean, there's many reasons, but if you can find this, I'm not sure that it's out of print or not, but if you can find this, please buy it. It's just looking at these pages, like, I need to read it again. I've read it twice through, and I'm going to go in on a third time. I haven't been reading a ton of comics lately just because I've been kind of swamped with Wonder Woman deadlines, which is my own fault. The corona, not depression, the corona struggle really was affecting my output for a few weeks. I was having a really hard time working on Wonder Woman, so DC is very understanding. But, you know, as things are starting to pick up a little bit, yeah, I gotta finish it. So that's been going through my mind a lot. Let's see. Wonder Woman Dead Earth issue 3 will be coming out June 17th. I'm super excited. I cannot wait for people to read it. I think it's gonna be really fun. Please, if you're able to, please ask your comic shop to order it. Pick it up at the curb or whatever. I fully realize that comics now are not on the top of anybody's priority list when it comes to finances and things to spend your money on. But if it's in your budget, please consider getting it. I think it's going to be worth your time. I'm going to look at the camera. It's worth your time, I promise. I don't know. Should I be looking at the camera? Or... because I'm looking at myself on the screen. Is it weird if I look in the camera? Hello everyone. Friday with D-Dubs. I don't know. I know nobody cares about this, but I started playing an OpenG. Isn't that pretty? So I was just playing last night. When I started making money in comics and, like, you know, paying my rent with illustration, I found that I didn't really sketch for fun as much. So one of the reasons I've made this deep dive into guitar is because, you know, I need another artistic outlet that has no relation to money. And, you know, I know I'm speaking from a privileged position because I do get to draw comics to pay my rent, and I'm very thankful for it. But, you know, it's good to have another outlet. Let's take some questions, just a few, before I go. I don't have a ton of time today. I've already spent way too much time hanging out, sorry. Let's see. I'll mostly be looking at the Friday with D-Dubs comments for the questions, if that's cool with you guys. Alright, Gunner Leatherwood. Hey, buddy. Asks, between working on a certain aspect style medium in your work or experimenting in medium styles, which do you feel is more beneficial for the improvement or growth as an artist, both in the comics industry and more generally? You know, I don't really think it matters that much. I think if you are making stuff that you're excited about and making it in a way that gets you excited, you know, if you start catering to what you think is going to sell or what you think editors might want to see, it will eventually backfire because you're going to start going against your natural way of things. That's just my opinion. All of this is all my opinion. So, feel free to hit the little X button on Chrome and not listen to me anymore. Let's see. All right, Marek. Sorry, Marek with a lot of C's at the end. Hello. Hi, Daniel. Love all your work. How do you manage to do both the writing and the art for your comics? I barely manage. It's not easy. One thing that I like to say to... I'm always trying to convince artists in the industry to write their own stuff more and try and publish it, because I think it's just awesome when artists do that. Because, we are capable of telling stories visually. Why can't we just tell a story visually on our own? No offense to writers. Writers are great. I love seeing artists kind of break out of their box and... Sorry, fruit flies. Love seeing artists break out of their box and, make something new. But one thing I see, especially in genre fiction, is like a trend of like needing to make... The feeling that you need to make stories like relatively complicated. And I just think, simple stories have worked since the dawn of time. From, fairy tales, folk tales that, literally 3 things happen. Simple is best. Or not best, but it's just completely acceptable. Because, when you make a story... all the stories have already been told, technically. Revenge, love, war story, whatever. It's all been done. But you're putting your own spin on it because of just who you are as a person. So you could tell a story like that's basically a Romeo and Juliet style story, but it's still going to be your own because you're your own person, and just your life experiences and the way that you carry yourself and the way that you've, I don't know, just your perspective. It just will make a story its own. So I wouldn't worry so much about trying to make like a super complicated story. It could be as simple as like a guy comes home from work and like hugs his wife, and maybe he fights monsters on the way home or something. I don't know. Anything. Like, people would totally read that if it's drawn cool enough. If it has enough pizzazz, does not matter. Genre fiction is great for that. All right, one more. Max Lombard. What's up, Max? Have you heard weird, funny comic book industry stories from other comic book artists, writers, editors, friends? Are some comic book industry too particular with the in-house style, or does it depend on the franchise or story? Well, the last part of the question, I can't really speak to it because I don't have any experience with any one editor saying, we don't want you for this because of our in-house style. I've never had that problem. I know other people have, but I just can't speak to it. As far as like funny comic book industry stories go, I do have one funny story that's like just very chill. I remember, so when I was working on the Ghost Fleet at Dark Horse with Donnie Cates. Hello, Donnie. I won't embarrass you, Donnie. Don't worry. But this is before the world cared about any of us, me or Donnie. And I had read Buzzkill a few months prior, before getting the gig at the Ghost Fleet. And I reached out to Donnie through email, and I was like, hey, Buzzkill was amazing. I was like, you're a fantastic writer. And he responded, and he's like, thanks so much, man. And I think he checked out Space Mullet that was online at the time. And he said, I really love your stuff too. We should collaborate. And I was like, let's do it. So we threw a few ideas around over the phone, and we talked, and we really got along well. And we kind of left it open for a possibility of maybe hanging out. Or like putting together a story and pitching a story. But, we didn't really have anything in the can. We were just talking about ideas. And then he called me later and, offered me the Ghost Fleet in January 2014. I think that's right. Anyway, so when the Ghost Fleet was like starting to come out and like it was being announced, I think it got announced maybe at C2E2 for 2014, and it came out in the fall. Can't really remember. I don't remember when it came out even. Anyway, when it was starting to come out, again, nobody knew who we were, and we were just doing our best to make it happen, and I was trying my very best at the art, and Donnie was bringing all he had on the script. And I remember before the book came out, we were at a convention, and Dark Horse had given us these like little postcards of like the issue 1 cover, which, looking at the issue 1 cover now, it's just abysmal. It's a terrible cover. I was not, I was still learning. I still am learning. But I was especially learning back then, and it was not good. But to Donnie's credit, at Comic-Cons, at my table, especially back then, I would just kind of like do my thing. Maybe I'd get a sketch or two. Maybe a handful of people would stop at my table. Maybe. And I was just trying to make it happen. I was still doing zombie portraits at the time to try and make ends meet, because the tables are so expensive, and they're not going to give me a table for free or anything like that. So I'm hustling on working on zombie portraits, and Donnie would come over, and he's like, "Hey man, you got those postcards?" I was like, "Yeah, they're here." He's like, "Has anybody been taking them?" And I was like, "Not really." And so he would just sit down next to me, and he would just yell at people passing by. Just like, you look like you would love the Ghost Fleet, and people are like, what? Keep walking. And dude, he would be there for hours, just like, "Hey you, this guy, he's a fantastic artist. He did this thing called the Ghost Fleet, and I wrote it." And he would just like hustle, way more than I ever did. And so whenever I see Donnie now, I just like, I'm so happy for him. He's a superstar now, and he earned it. He friggin' hustled from the very beginning. So good on you, Donnie. And that always makes me smile, is thinking about how hard you were working, even from the beginning. And I know he's still working hard now, so props to him. And before I go, got to give a shout out to True Gunpla. Got me this sweet shirt, sent it to me in the mail. Did a podcast with those guys over at Holy Mountain Printing. I don't know, can you see it? Oh. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm going to link to them below, and you should follow their stuff because they're awesome. Thanks so much for the cool shit, the cool crap. And it's time for me to get back to work. See you guys later. Take care. Have a good weekend. Keep your heads up. And I don't know. I'll be here next Friday.